Hiya, it's Friday's Talking Reds. I'm Josh Sexton. I'm joined today by Neil Atkinson. Neil, there's a few potential hindrances for the Reds at the moment. One appears to be their own inability to win football matches, which is a bit of a blow. But also the coronavirus is threatening to ruin the Reds' title push, or at least our enjoyment of it anyway.
I mean, nothing is going to ruin my enjoyment of it. If I have to self-quarantine for 14 days as champions, then what a 14 days it'll be. In fact, it may actually be the sensible approach for everybody. So no, nothing is going to ruin my enjoyment of it. I'm not standing for that for a second. Not this virus, not the meteorite, not whatever it is that Alex Ferguson has also got up his sleeve to throw at us all the way through all of this sort of thing. I am absolutely loving every minute of it, but I quite like them to win some games of football.
I'd like them to win some games of football,
and just
really.
get it done really now, because I've very much given myself over to the idea that there wasn't going to be any big sort of momentous moment now. It was just a matter of getting it done. So therefore, just get it done. That's what we're all about now. So yeah, that's what I'd like. I'd like to see that, but the corona is going to have knock-on effects, I think.
Yeah, and some of the knock-on effects are already starting to take place. There's preventative measures being put in place by the club and by the Premier League. The club's one's a bit mad because, as I understand it, and I'm sort of, okay to be corrected on this, but apparently children under 9 can't get coronavirus. But the club have banned, I think banned's probably a bit strong, but they're saying there's going to be no more mascots on the field for the remainder of the season. And also the Premier League have now stopped the fair play handshakes before the game, as they call them.
I wonder about the mascot thing, is that you've got to meet other people. So you've got to meet the parents. You can't just jib the parents. You don't just bust the children in. Also, if anyone looks to me like a super spreader, it's Mighty Red. So I think if we can, maybe minimise Mighty Red's involvement in all of this, he is the cormorant of coronavirus, and we've got to bear that in mind. So I think that matters. I think the no fair play handshake thing, what it suggests to me? That no one likes it, everyone's wanted rid of it, and someone's gone, I know. That's what that feels like. It's not as though footballers are constantly in contact with one another, but maybe they're trying to use it as a symbolic thing, i.e. just be careful what you're doing with your hands in general, the public.
Do you know what I quite like about them though, is I feel like I always watch Virgil van Dijk during them, and I feel like he always uses it as a chance to get the first mental edge, because his handshake is so strong, and it's not just it's proper one of them. So each player goes on the line ready for this today.
And he's enormous, you're walking up to him like that thinking, leave me hand alone, Virg. And now Virgil is going to be enforced upon him. But I'm sure Virgil will find other ways to let people know early what he's about. He might go into the away dressing room beforehand and just shake hands with them, and just sort of make them aware of the fact that they're about to come up against Virgil van Dijk. But yeah, listen, I think there's going to be lots of little bits and pieces and stuff around the edges, and I think there's a tiny little bit here of the Premier League wanting to be seen to doing its bit. Yeah. And I think that's part of it. And it almost feels like you feel as though you've got to be able to say, well, we're doing this, at least when there's a bit of a public health crisis. So let's just see what happens at this sort of stage. In general, it would be a shame if football matches had to start being played behind closed doors. And I think I don't see there being anything else that goes any further than that. I don't genuinely think there's a possibility of games being postponed in this country as it stands. I don't think that's likely to happen. I just think it would be a shame to see games have to be played behind closed doors. And I think in general, the main thing is everyone just keeps up the very obvious public health recommendations from the experts, which is don't do anything daft, keep washing your hands, self-isolate if you feel as though you're at any real risk, don't come into work sick, which, as you know, the Anfield app's very on top of all the time, really, but don't take those chances, just sort of look after yourselves.
Yeah, I'd say it's best left to the experts. As Jurgen Klopp himself said the other day, Julian Nagelsmann has now come out and said the same thing. But there was an interesting thing. I was sort of looking at a few stories to put on this morning, and a few coronavirus things came back to back. So I thought, yeah, I'll put that on. And Ajax coach Christian Poulsen, also formerly of no running in Liverpool's midfield fame, has apparently been told to self-isolate because him and a few other Ajax coaches went to a party with someone who is now a confirmed case in Holland.
I mean, Christian Poulsen, whilst he played holding midfield for Liverpool, most definitely self-isolated. And there's no getting away from the facts on that one. But it is something which, I mean, again, that shows that, again, it's being taken seriously. And I think that the self-isolation thing's perfectly valid, and I think that if a period of time for everyone, and there's worse things in the world than the idea of having to take yourself away for a couple of weeks, if that is indeed you. But it is just worth everyone just trying to keep things in proportion, but listen to the experts. And I'm really pleased Klopp and Nagelsmann have said what they've said, to be honest with you, because I think this idea that as a football manager you could get asked about anything at any time is just a little bit ridiculous. And I think in general, I think Klopp's issue seems to be very much the idea of don't basically pin your hopes on celebrity. And I think if you look at, there's this idea around Klopp, so much of it's about the hugs and all of this sort of stuff, and he is prepared to speak his mind on things. But I do think that one of the things that he is into is expertise. And we see that, and you can almost pull this back, and I know it sounds ridiculous to go from coronavirus to this, but you can pull this back to like the throwing coach thing, where what Klopp felt like he had a problem and something he wanted to address. So what did he do? He went and found the best person who he felt was the most knowledgeable about this and got him in. And the reaction from a lot of the British media in different ways was to pour scorn on that and act as though it was ridiculous. But that's part of what Jurgen Klopp is. I don't feel as though I have sufficient information about something, so I'll go and find the best person. And if you look at all of Liverpool's behind-the-scenes recruitment, it's been about, let me go and find the best person and a person I feel I can work with, a person who's got a certain attitude that I can buy into. And it is about going and finding expertise and then praising that expertise. Again, another example of that is that, you know, Klopp's gone out of his way to make clear that Mo Salah, the signing of Mo Salah wasn't his idea. And if anything, he had to be talked into it, but he was talked into it by listening to expertise. And I think in general, if people did that a little bit more, if people got good expertise in all walks of life and listened to it and respected it, then I think we'd be in a better place.
Yeah, absolutely nothing to disagree with there. I think that's enough coronavirus chat for one Friday anyway, so we'll do some looking ahead to Bournemouth, but first, here's a little clip from our preview show.
Yeah, Paul, I mean, when you look at the facts and figures, Bournemouth in terms of away form, only Watford, Aston Villa and Norwich are worse than them on the road. They played 14, won 3, drawn 1, lost 10, scored only 11 goals in those 14 games. And against Liverpool as well, I mean, there's the 4-3 in 2016 when we went down there with a dodgy keeper and lost that game. But since then, we've routinely been tonking them 4-0, 3-0, 4-0, 3-0, 3-0. 3-0 this season, of course. 3-0 at Anfield last season. 4-0 down at their place last season. And even this season, I thought in the reverse fixture, they were so passive. Do you know what I mean? Like it was really obvious early on. They didn't fancy the chances. They didn't think they could compete with Liverpool. They tried to do what Kev was just saying and attempting to sit in, but they're not able to do it. They haven't got the bodies to do it. They haven't got the ability to do it.
No, the nature of them, they're a good footballing side who will probably beat the teams they should beat in and around there, and that's what they've been successful with, isn't it, over the last few years. When you look at them now, they're conceding a lot of goals, but they're not scoring a lot of goals neither. Then you add in that Harry Wilson, who's probably the second top goal scorer. He can't play, can he? And obviously, touch wood and all that type of stuff. Them at top scorer hasn't scored for a number of games as well. It all points the right way, doesn't it? And all Liverpool have to do is turn up and put a performance in, which the nature of this team is you'd expect them to feel like they need to do that now after the last couple of games, you know what I mean? And that's not just about for the fans or nothing like that. That's for themselves. That's the way they seem to be built. So I'm reasonably confident about it, although, to be fair to Bournemouth, they did quite well against Chelsea last time out, didn't they? And they were unlucky in the end. So, you know, I think it's there for us to take, isn't it? But we've got to turn up.
Yeah, that is our preview show. That is now back on our subscription service, of course. Our app is now back up and running. There's still a few back-end issues with the website, which we're still trying to sort out. But the best place, as always, to get all of our content, once again, is our app, which I can say is now back up and running and working, which is great news, as Neil is responding to right next to me. And Neil,
highs and lows.
We could do the response from the Reds, to be honest, because there's been a few W's lacking in my life recently. There's one of them was websites, and one of them is wins.
Yeah, wins. Let's get wins sorted, that website sorted as soon as possible. The win is everything. I think you can talk about the performance, but I think them coming back in and feeling like they've played reasonably well and they've got a victory off the back of it, I think is the main thing that helps them against Atletico. I don't think they need to feel as though they played brilliantly, but I think getting the win and then being ready for Wednesday is huge. And you know, we've got to be careful about this. I keep doing things and everyone's saying, well, if you could handpick an opponent, it's Bournemouth. And the extent to which I feel as though that sentence very much does Eddie Howe's team talk for him is worth remembering. So, you know, maybe if I was to handpick an opponent right now, I wouldn't pick Bournemouth. And maybe even might pick Aston Villa at home or something like that. But you know, Howe's team know what it is to come to Anfield. They know what it is to come to Anfield when there's a bit of an atmosphere as well, because we're all pushing the atmosphere angle. But they have experienced that last season. So I think that's worth thinking about as well. It may not be quite as intimidating for them as we'd like it to be. I think ultimately Liverpool have, you know, if it's me, I think he's got to pick 9 of his Atletico starting 11, if not 10 or maybe even 11. I wouldn't be averse to seeing a change in shape, but it may be that he's decided, listen, this is the, you know, I'm dancing with what's brought me all the way through now until the end of the season, and that'd be perfectly reasonable as well. So I think, you know, we'll wait to see the lineup, but as far as I'm concerned, as I say, I'd like to see 9 of his Atletico Madrid 11 start the game, and I definitely want to see James Milner lead Liverpool out. Yeah, and he's obviously got his press conference to come up later. Jurgen Klopp will be responding to that on our Team Talk show, but
I think he might have a bit of a problem in midfield. I think James Milner would probably be the first name on the team sheet for me. I think there's probably Gino Wijnaldum there as well. But then I'm sort of tossing and turning over the third, really. I think there's probably an argument actually to play Minamino, and I thought he was quite good against Chelsea the other night, but I don't know whether Klopp's sort of comfortable enough playing in midfield yet. I don't know where you stand on that, whether you think that maybe actually just persevering with Fabinho is the best call.
I would persevere with Fabinho because I've been playing him against Atletico. Yeah. And so I think I'd be picking him for this one, get that in his legs, and if you want to do him on 60, do him on 60. But I think he just needs to find his way back through matches. Now, it might be that a change of shape to a 4-2-3-1 and put someone like Milner next to him, maybe no bad thing, and give him someone in there. And then also that makes it easier for Milner in coming back as well. The other thing I think he might do is he might consider giving Robertson a rest because he hasn't been able to, and giving Milner 60 minutes at left back possibly. But I'd like to see Milner in midfield. I think that someone to help look after the game in the middle of the park's been missing. I think we've got to be careful not to get carried away, and I say this as someone who's made the arguments conversely around Henderson at times, but we've got to be careful not to get carried away with the lack of Henderson in that, you know, it was 12 months ago and we were having a conversation on shows like this saying, how does Henderson get back in the 11? These footballers should be able to find their way through, and I don't think we should take the responsibility of that away from them. You know, and we should be allowed to say, you know, we need to get a bit more from them. The other one I wouldn't mind seeing is certainly if you went 4-2-3-1 would be Lallana off a flank, and then go with Firmino behind Salah and Mane off another flank, and do it that way round, and then maybe go Milner and Fabinho. Alternatively, if he does want to stick with the shape as it's been, then I think I'd be looking to pick. I wouldn't pick Wijnaldum. I'd pick Wijnaldum against Atletico, but I think I almost want Wijnaldum. I think the thing Wijnaldum needs is to just get his energy levels as high as possible. I don't think, you know, I think Fabinho needs games. I think Wijnaldum needs just a bit of rest. So I wouldn't have a problem if he doesn't go Wijnaldum, and if he went, for instance, Milner to the left-hand side, Fabinho, and then Oxlade-Chamberlain on the right-hand side, or Keita if he's back fit on the right-hand side. That's what I might look to do with that midfield three. But he'll make his own decision, obviously, based upon what he's seen in training and who's in what place. But I do think, as much as possible, I think it has to be close to the Atletico side, because I think that there's a big enough gap. And the other thing to point out, which we'll talk about in our Atletico build-up, I'm sure, but they've got a massive game against Sevilla on Saturday at 3 p.m. Last time they played Friday, we played Saturday, the game was Tuesday. This time we're Saturday 12:30, it's not a massive advantage, but we're at home to Bournemouth. They've got to deal with Sevilla, and then they've got to come to Anfield. So I do think that helps us, and I think that one of the things that happens last time is I think Liverpool's intensity wanes a little bit off the back of the Norwich game, which, remember, was in arduous conditions as well. So I think that all of that can lead to Liverpool getting back-to-back victories, and by Atletico, when I talk about a victory, I mean progressing to the next phase.
So do you think there's a bit of a Mane question? If you're starting him against Bournemouth and wanting to start him against Atletico, that's sort of 3 games within the space of a week? Just over a week.
I think that they're just about well enough spaced. So you're in a situation where he's gone Tuesday. It's Tuesday, Saturday, Wednesday. I think you've got enough of a spacing in there. But also, listen, we need to beat Bournemouth and we need to get back going. And you try to tell Sadio Mane he's not playing either of these 2 next games. You know, he's playing. I think he's playing both of them, and I think you've just got to back that to the hilt. And listen, it may have been different, and I think that he may have picked a different side against Chelsea if he'd have got a result against Watford. I think that's one of the misnomers in amongst all this. I don't actually think that is true, but I think it may be a point, because I think he gets them in July, and I think he says that we've got to win this league at all costs. And then I think he gets them in October, November, maybe after they beat City, and he says, we can do this. But we've got to commit everything we have, every ounce of our being. And I think that you say that to a group of footballers, and if you think about so much what Klopp does, it's about clean messaging, it's about things being straightforward, and I think that's what he's, you know, people can say, I wish he picked a weaker side against Watford, a weaker side against Bournemouth, and a first 11 against Chelsea, but if he's been saying to them, and they've been saying to each other since July, we win this league, we win this league, we win this league, and then they play how they play to win this league, you can't then suddenly bring them back from the winter break and say, everything's changed, lads, you only need a couple of wins, because it's just not clean messaging. And so I think that they will play as strong as they can against Bournemouth, as strong as they can against Atletico, as strong as they can against Everton, as strong as they can against Palace. And then if it's done against Palace, that's when you might start to see chopping and changing, experimentation, Minamino back in midfield, etc., etc.
Yeah, we'll just finish off then with our question from yesterday's comments underneath Talking Reds. This one is from, I believe, Mark Smith, I want to say was the name. I didn't actually write it down, so soz. But he says, how disappointed are you that Big Shaq's hardly ever been available? We could really use him right now. No, I think there's 2 things in this for me. We could really use him right now is one of that sort of, you know, if you don't have it, you don't know, so you sort of can make assumptions around it. But I do think it's a bit of a shame that he's hardly ever been available, because, well, I want every player to be a success at Liverpool, but also I particularly wanted Shaqiri to be.
I think where we've missed him is the tactical option. I've just talked about going 4-2-3-1, and I think if you can pick Shaqiri, for instance, Bournemouth at home is a great game to pick Shaqiri. I'd be all over it, to be honest. If he was fit and available, the conversation we've just had, I'd be saying go 4-2-3-1, play Shaqiri off the right, give him 60 minutes and see how it goes. Because I think he'll make a massive difference, and I think he would also have made a difference involvement in terms of coming off the bench, for instance, against West Ham. Yes, we go on and win the game, but also against Watford, the opportunity to do something a little bit different, maybe when it goes 1-0. Now, you can look at, you know, obviously how brilliant the side's been and it's kept winning games, but the idea of, you know, I think that you might have seen a few more subs where he comes on, gets people 20 minutes fewer, and that doesn't sound like much, but that's when people go into the red zone and all of that sort of conversation. You know, you've seen Salah get subbed on 70 in a few games recently because I think he's protecting him as much as possible for what's to come next. So I think it has been a shame, but also I sort of take your point in that, you know, I think just if nothing else, you know, Shaqiri's got a bit of the adventure. He's integral for the goal against Barcelona, but it is a shame that any of them really, because for me they've all played the part. But it would be nice if I want them to feel as though they played the part as well. They've been our lads now for 2 years. You know, one of the things that comes from not making any signings last summer is that there are boys. They were our boys when they got 97 points and won the Champions League, and there are boys now. But it's just a shame if one of our boys doesn't get the time on the pitch we'd like. Yeah.
Well, leave your questions in the comments below. Make them light-hearted, make them a bit fun. We're on this for a bit of fun, aren't we? Don't make them time-sensitive either, because obviously we've got Bournemouth to come tomorrow. Download the app, don't shake anybody's hand, and let's get this league won.
Also, one more thing is we're doing Hot Mic again.
Of course.
So we're doing Hot Mic again this weekend. If you've not tried it, please consider doing so. And it's a good game to try because we're actually doing it for Manchester United versus Manchester City. Now, if like me, you're a March the 21st Ultra, and I'm going to get a range of merch produced off the back of this, March the 21st is when we want to win this league. 5:30 kick-off against Crystal Palace at home. That is the game. It is the perfect one now to win this league at. Imagine the party. Imagine what towns like Everton away at Norwich on the Sunday. They're not even going to be out. It's going to be a glorious festival of redness. So if you're a March the 21st Ultra, we are all in for a Manchester United victory against Manchester City on Sunday. So we're going to be commentating on it, me and John, for Hot Mic. So if you download the app and put the code in Anfield Rap, so not the Anfield Rap, but Anfield Rap, that'd be great. And if you've been enjoying it, do recommend it to people, do share it, and when you got on there, do follow. We're enjoying doing the Hot Mic stuff. And as I say, I understand for Liverpool games, people want to know what they're used to. Yeah. But you know, you don't want to take any chances. But if you've wanted to experiment with it and come and enjoy it with us, and trust me, it's not straight commentary or anything like that. It's lots and lots of fun chat, but it'll be with a Liverpool slant. Manchester United versus Manchester City, up the March the 21st Ultras.